Hey guys! As promised, here's my video after coming back from B.A.P's Live on Earth in New York. Yo, I'm still so geeked that I went. It'll be a week tomorrow that I saw B.A.P in front of me, sweating and dripping in hair dye and whatnot. Oh my gosh. This is mind-blowing for me, but I promised y'all a video because my first concert for B.A.P is also my first K-pop event, period. But since I had, two firsts here, I had another first where I got a high-touch pass, meaning that I got to actually meet them, and I got to high-five them, I got to, tell them how I felt. People got to give them gifts and stuff, and I told my followers and other people who happen to be seeing this video that I would be doing a reaction video to it basically and talk about my experience. So first and foremost, first person that was in the line as far as I can recall was actually Zello. Let's see, homeboy's a little big. He's at least 6'1", and he's not even 18 yet. So he has a very imposing figure. He stands out in a room because of how tall he is, and that's what happened at the High Touch event. As soon as I walked around the corner, first thing I saw, not just because he was obviously the first member I saw in the door frame, but also he stood out like a sore thumb because of how tall he was. But I had to look up at him a little bit, and I'm like two people behind where he is. I'm looking at him, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to look up at him, and he's younger than me. This is weird. Mind you, Zello's 17, I'm 22, so looking up at somebody who's younger than you is really weird. So what had happened for me was basically that I got to Zello, and he was watching this next girl go by, making sure she was okay and stuff, and then he looked over at me and he said, he leaned back and he sunk down to my eye level, and he just kind of did one of those faces where it's like, girl, and put his hands up to high-five me. And I looked at him like, boy, who are you? I just looked, I'm like, you are such a younger brother, more or less. You are pretty much everybody's younger brother that they would love to have. Now, I'm looking at him, he's looking at me, and there's a moment of pause because I had no idea what to do in that moment. I'm looking at him, I'm sitting there thinking, I just want to take you to a skate park and treat you to some ice cream. So I high-five him, I'm just like, alright, hey! And he said, what's up? And then just went on to the next person. I'm just like, I hope my little brother grows up to be like you one day. Next person actually that came after Zello was Himchan. And he's so handsome. Unbelievably handsome in person and up close. He has a nice little tanness to his skin compared to the other members, and I appreciate that. Holla for the dark skins. But no, seriously, he has an absolutely beautiful smile. And when I walked up to him, he was nothing but smiles. He was just like, had a gentlemanly smile to him. Like, he was very poised. And he carries himself very well. So he had his hands up, and he just said, had his hands straight on. I high-fived him, and he got some firm hands. Like, I high-fived him, and I felt the reflex in my hands. He didn't budge. So I'm just like, oh, people are right. He does have strong hands. Daehyun's hands are also very soft. After Daehyun was all said and done, Jungkook came into play. Oh my god! I was so geeked for Jungkook. He's not even my favorite member anymore. I like all members of B.A.P. I think they all add something to the table, but Jungkook has been like, he's been the main. He's been it. Since before B.A.P, since before Bang and Zello, since before his cameo on Songjoon's Going Crazy, he was also underground rapper, and that's how I knew him. To finally be in front of a guy that I very, very greatly admire, it was almost as if, you getting reacquainted with a schoolyard crush, basically. It was as if, all those feelings and sentiments just came rushing back to me, and I was flabbergasted. Also, let me tell you, he was smiling so hard, like, his smile was about as sunny as my tank top, pretty much. About as sunny as my tank top and my hat. He smiles very brightly. He was smiling so hard when I walked up to him. He was already kind of like this. He was about maybe a 6 in terms of smiling from the person before. He must have went to about like an 8 when I walked in. So he went from this to this. And he was leaning in. He had his hands like this. He was slowly trying to approach for a high five. And I'm just like, okay, boop. And when I did it, I was so at a loss for words. All I could really tell him was, thank you. All them tears, all them feelings and stuff, all I could really think to say was thank you. I'm just greatly appreciative of him and his existence and his presence in K-pop in general. After Jungkook, we actually have birthday boy Himchan. Bro, you 24. Holla! Happy birthday! During the concert, however, I was so hyped for him. I believe it was during Body and Soul for Himchan's part, before the last chorus. I think it was like the bridge, more or less. I don't know what came over me. I just started screaming at the top of my lungs, "Get it, Himchan!" And that I was still riding on that high when I went into the high touch. So I was excited, but he only had one hand up. I think, honestly, I feel like he would probably sustain an injury to his other hand or something. I feel like that's why he had his hand withdrawn, his other hand like to his back, and his one hand is like this. Only obviously it was the other way around. Oopsie, my bad. One thing I definitely do kind of regret-ish not being able to do during the high touch event was that it completely slipped my mind to tell Himchan basically that he has nothing to worry about with his English. I don't want him to feel that low about himself, because I mean, English is a hard language. It's really hard to learn any language, and people who criticize him, or really anybody else who tries to learn a different language and makes fun of him for having an accent or whatnot, they're not in the right. They're not right, and they know they're not right. But I wish I could have told him that, at least. But I high-fived him, boop, boop, because I want both my hands to touch him. And I just smiled and nodded, and I went on my way. I went on my way right over to Young Jae. Now, Young Jae, I'm going to be straight up with you. Young Jae's not a favorite. So I kind of didn't feel a way when I walked up to Young Jae at all. I'm just kind of like, hey, I'm passing by a stranger. So I will say that with Young Jae in particular, I'm really glad that I got to see his, famous, notorious fan service up front. Because He was milking them fans, boy. It was great. It was funny. He was literally leaning in and not really coaxing me. He was leaning in and he has hands up and he's like, hello. Just high-fived him, moved on down the line. Moving on down the line, last person in line was actually Jollup! Oh my gosh. I walked into the venue and basically an everybody but Youngjae fan. Jungkook was basically the ride or die factor, but at the end of the day, I was an everybody but Youngjae stan. And then I mosey on along, I have my good time. I leave the venue, I walk out basically a Jungkook stan. That boy is so beautiful. He's just so very, he's breathtaking. Like, he was the last person in the row, but that was when I first started feeling nervous and I had no idea what to say. I was flabbergasted. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I say? Oh my gosh, I'm in front of Jungkook. Oh my gosh. At that point, it was when it was really hitting me that, oh my gosh, I just high-fived and met B.A.P. I just met them. I just touched them. I just said hello. I just said thank you to Jungkook. Like, that's when it started hitting me. And he had forgot, I don't know if he forgot that he had more people waiting in line, but he put his hands down for a minute and he was looking over at the staff and smiling. I just had my hands up like this. And he saw me like, oh, and just put his hands up, smiled a little bit, and I high-fived him, and I ducked, I dipped, ow. I dipped. As soon as I touched Jungkook's hands, I said goodbye because I didn't want to crack and lose my composure. All in all, thinking back on this experience, I'm very, very, extremely pleased. I'm really glad that this was my first K-pop concert. This may or may not be my last, but I'm glad that this was my first. It was a fabulous experience, and if I had to go to another K-pop concert, or if there was another one and I would never have to go to it again, I'd go to see B.A.P. again. Well, it's been a slice. This has been my little account. Bye, everybody. Bye.